Hi everyone, this is going to be the last of my David Lynch videos. I might do a video later on some of the stuff that he's done since his last feature. I learned recently that he starred in and guest directed some episodes of the FX series Louie, and he's also done a lot of sort of shorts for internet. As of right now, it doesn't look like he's planning on doing any more feature films, at least not on actual film. The last movie that he made was released in 2006. It was called Inland Empire. Here is my copy of it. I bought a copy online recently for like $7, and this is actually a former rental copy. But the disc is in very good condition, so I'm happy about that. And there's a lot of good extras on it. One thing about David Lynch is that he doesn't really like talking about he doesn't like handing people his interpretation of his own films, or talk about, you know, what went into making them or the thought process behind them. He wants to keep all that a mystery and let sort of people figure that stuff out for themselves. This is a unique disc because it's got a lot of deleted scenes on it. The movie itself is close to 3 hours long, and still there's nearly an hour of deleted material on the second disc here, which is great if you are into the film itself, which not a lot of people are. I took it upon myself to make notes. The last time, when I just rewatched this, it took me about 2 days because I was writing notes on pretty much each scene and a lot of the incidental little bits in between. I wrote out like 6.5 pages worth of notes describing the characters and what happens in some of the more noteworthy elements, you know, props and locations and what have you. The reason why I did this is because the movie is so long and sort of disjointed in what it's depicting, that I sort of have to map it all out and sort of get some distance on it. The first time I saw this was on video. It was like the only since Blue Velvet I've watched all of his films in the theater. I mean, since Blue Velvet came out, and this one I considered going to see it in the theater, but I decided not to because of what I read about it. And I'm glad I did too, because it was much easier to handle. Like I said, it's nearly 3 hours long, so the first time I watched the film, I divided it up into 3 parts and watched like an hour each on a separate day. That was much easier to handle that way. Sitting through the whole thing would have been a mistake. A friend of mine actually said, you ought to see it in the theater, you ought to have that experience, but I found out later that he actually hated the movie and couldn't wait for it to be over, so I'm glad I didn't listen to him. He just wanted me to suffer. So, anyway, like I said, it's sort of, writing all this stuff down really sort of helped me figure out and notice the connective tissue between some of the material. The first hour's more or less straightforward story. The main character is played by Dern, who is in, of course, Wild at Heart and Blue Velvet. And at the start of the picture, she plays a woman named Nikki, who is a professional actress. She's had some measure of success. She's well known within Hollywood. And she's just gotten the part of Susan in a film called On High in Blue Tomorrows, that's directed by a guy named Kingsley, who's played by Jeremy Irons, and her co-star is Devin Burke, who is played by Justin Theroux, who of course was the film director in Mulholland Drive. The story of the film that they're making is a woman who meets a man, and he's married with kids, and I think she's married as well, but they have an affair. He takes some, you know, it takes some seduction on his part, in the start of the movie, the actor playing this character is known as sort of a ladies' man, and he's known for having, you know, relationships and flings with a lot of different women. So his friends are all telling him, okay, so with Nikki here, hands off this one because of her husband. Her husband will find out about it, and he'll make you suffer because he's a very sort of wealthy, powerful guy. They live in a big, beautiful Beverly Hills mansion. It's just like, hey, not going to happen. And as they're shooting the picture, the storyline of them having an affair, or them considering having an affair, begins to bleed into reality. So you have a scene where they're shooting you'll have them shooting a scene whereby he says, "Oh, don't leave, stay and have a drink and stay for dinner," and she's sort of making fun of him for his obvious seduction technique. And then when between scenes, he's saying, "Hey, how about after the shoot we go get dinner together?" And she's making fun of him then for being a slickster. But eventually they start sleeping together, and then she sort of transitions from being this actress playing the character of Susan to actually being Susan herself, inexplicably. But her husband, her actual husband, Nikki's husband, turns out to be her character's husband as well. At least the actor plays the same guy, a character named Smithy. And the funny thing is that you never really learn Nikki's husband's name, but you find out that Smithy is this guy that Susan is married to in this dilapidated little house, and they don't have a lot of money, and they don't eat very well, don't live very well. But now she's sort of living out being Susan and wanting to have an affair with Billy, or considering having an affair with Billy, who is the character that Devin is playing. It's all very confusing after a while. So that's just like the first hour, and then the next couple of hours are just a whole bunch of disjointed scenes, some of which are related to Susan and Smitty directly. Susan and Smitty and Billy, but then others just seem to take a whole bunch of different characters, and just, it's hard to grasp exactly how they're related a lot of the times. I made this sort of promise to myself that I wouldn't go on Wikipedia and try and figure out what the interpretation of the plot was, and just try to figure it out for myself. There are a lot of recurring things that happen, and one of which is a character who I call TV Watcher. I don't know a lot of the actors in this movie, so it's not like I could look through the credits to spot the actor's name and the name of the character they're playing, so I sort of invented names for a lot of them. TV Watcher is this girl who's basically watching the movie that we're watching in some apartment somewhere. She's in this radical apartment, she's watching it on TV. And as it turns out, and this is just my take on it, but in the end, it's suggested that this girl, the TV Watcher, is actually the real Susan. And that Laura Dern's playing Susan is actually a possible future version of Susan, something that hasn't actually occurred yet, but is a possibility. Or she's a fictionalized version of Susan that is different from the real version of Susan. And the reason why I say that is because at one point, Susan mentions that she's been in a bad place since her son died. But in one of the end scenes, you have this TV Watcher character arrive at Susan's home, and there's Smithy, the husband, and there's the son, who is very much alive. So all that actually takes place before the son died, if in fact he did die. But none of that's really clear. It's all very, very unclear. There's also another character who is in a long series of scenes that I like quite a bit. I call him Desk Man. He's basically just a guy in an office up in the upper floors of some building in Los Angeles. Susan goes to see him, and she basically sits down and starts talking for no particular reason. You don't know who this guy is or why she's talking to him, but she just keeps going on and on about all these experiences that she's had in her life and everything like that, and he's just there listening to her. There's a whole bunch of scenes involving her talking to this guy for whatever reason, and you get to know a lot about her character, but you don't know why she's actually saying any of this to him. And there's even more material like that in the deleted scenes, more footage of Laura Dern in the scenes where she's talking to the desk man. Jeremy Irons, like I said, he plays the director. He's really a lot of fun. He's only in a small number of scenes, but he's really funny in this. And Julia Ormond is also in it. She plays Billy's wife, Billy in the film, the character that they're making, of the film that they're making. Actually, like, aside from just one brief mention in the script reading early on, you have no idea who Laura Dern's character's name is, or at least the character that she's playing. The character that the actress Nikki is playing, until she confronts Billy and says that she loves him and wants to run away with him or something like that, and Julia Ormond his wife is there and she gets really angry. That's the only time, like, that's the first mention of her name practically in the whole thing. They mentioned that the movie that they're making is actually a remake of a movie called 4-7, which was based on a cursed Polish story, and the lead actors from the original production were murdered, and so the movie might be cursed. And then you've got, yeah, and then later on she encounters basically a doorway with 4-7 in it. But there's just a lot of really sort of interconnected stuff that goes on. I haven't even, you know, I've gone through all this trying to figure out what happens. There's this red light bulb that's significant in some way. And then you've got the rabbits. The rabbits are really bizarre. And you've got the circus that Smitty used to be a part of, and that's significant somehow. Yeah, and then there's this this recurring thing where she's like using a cigarette to burn a hole through silk and then looking through it and seeing weird things. Yeah. You know, I don't imagine, even after seeing this movie and getting a good handle on, or at least a better handle on what it's about, I still probably wouldn't want to see it in the theater and have to endure the entire thing. Especially since the movie is actually shot with a consumer-grade non-HD digital camera, which means the picture quality is actually really bad. A lot of the lighting is really bad, and sometimes just the camera work itself is really bad. There are many close-ups in which the lens appears to be like right up against the actor's nose, you know, and you can actually see the shadow of the cameraman on the actor's face. It's really, really stupid sometimes. But this isn't a movie you watch because it's beautiful to look at. It's just a bizarre mystery to get lost in, I guess. Yeah, there's some fun scenes involving some use of Polish. There's some Polish, or maybe it's Balkan. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, I'm rambling a little bit here because I'm not sure where to jump to next in the whole thing. It's just a really, really long sort of maze of imagery and recurring motifs, I guess you could say. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's not for everyone. Clearly not for everyone. In fact, I'm sure it's for practically no one. Very few people probably want to sit through that. And I can't say that it's, I mean, in terms of like, say, Blue Velvet, for example, Blue Velvet's a very well-made movie, but I find it hard to care that much about it. Now, Inland Empire, by comparison, is not a very well-made movie, and yet it's so much more interesting because, well, at least it is for me anyway, just because I can't make heads or tails of it most of the time. It takes a lot of effort to try and figure it out. And I really like a movie that forces you to engage in it and doesn't just hand you everything and say, oh, here's exactly what you're supposed to think and feel about this. You know, there's no clues here. I mean, if there are, the clues are not very obvious. So yeah, can't say I recommend it, because very few people aside from myself will actually want to sit through it. But hey, you know, you might want to take a chance and give it a try, because it certainly is something worth experiencing in some form or another. Actually, there's I didn't make note of the time, but there's one close-up on Laura Dern that's just like very, very strange and bizarre, where she's walking in slow motion towards the camera, and all of a sudden it speed ramps so that their face is like right in the lens and her mouth is all distorted. Very strange. There's good music, you know, good sound design, and a lot of really cool editing in it. Yeah. What else did I want to say about this? I'm not really sure. But yeah, it certainly is. One thing that I did want to say about this is that when I originally rented this on DVD, it was with a shop that had one of those Netflix deals where you can like rent a disc, you pay a monthly fee and you rent a disc, and you can keep it for as long as you like, but you can only have so many at a time. So I rented this and I kept it for like 3 weeks. All the scenes with Laura Dern and the Desk Man, I transcribed them all. I wrote down every word, and I have it all typed up still, and so I thought I'd take the synopsis and combine it with all the transcriptions and try and make like a complete synopsis, except that, of course, I probably have half the character names wrong, and I've misinterpreted a bunch of stuff. I don't really know. But it's interesting. It's interesting to think about, and like I said, it took me like 2 days to you know, watch like a few minutes of the movie and then pause it and then write down some stuff that happened as best I could and then watch a little bit more. It took forever, but it was worth it, you know, because I noticed a lot of stuff I wouldn't notice ordinarily. If you actually like have to write down everything that's happening, you'll remember it a lot better. At least I do. So anyway, yeah, Inland Empire. Crazy, you know, really hard to look at actually because it's so badly filmed, but interesting. Yeah, I might do one more David Lynch video on some of the other stuff he's done, but this is sort of the official end. And I'm going to be doing Tarantino soon. In fact, I need to start it like on the 12th if I want to get all of his filmography out of the way in time for Django Unchained. So I hope those of you who are still watching at this point, this very long video, will tune in for Tarantino. Oh, and I also wanted to mention, I should have done this at the beginning actually, the Movie Reviewers 100, the collab channel that I'm on right now, we're doing Kubrick Week, and so everybody's doing videos on Kubrick, which is very interesting. So I hope you'll stop by and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching this extremely long video, and probably very confusing as well for those of you who haven't seen the film, which is probably most of you. Thanks again for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next Director's Series. Bye.